oftentimes people ask me for advice and general questions like, oh, should I do this? Should I do this? I'm like, if you're asking, then the answer is already no. Because if you already felt it in your gut, you wouldn't even ask the question.
And they had me do this ceremony where like you'd purge into like a bucket. I went into the backyard. He's like, dig a hole, dump it into the hole, bless it, cover the mud, put tobacco leaves on top of it, or put it on top and then put tobacco leaves on top and then cover the hole with the dirt. And then
I think what you were, and a lot of guys that leave the Vivint environment realize this, is that you were proving to yourself that you could be successful independent of a company or a group of people. That it wasn't Vivint that made you successful. It wasn't Vivint's leadership. It was your ability to buy into the systems that then made you successful, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that you were understanding about yourself, is that you don't need to follow a mold of a path. You can create your own once you've got the foundation for it. And that was what you had, right? The foundation.
Yeah. It's so funny because like some people ask me for advice. How do I do this? I genuinely feel bad, and I try to I honestly don't encourage anyone to do it. Because it's because you don't need encouragement if you're going to do it.
Exactly.
If you're going to do it, you're going to do it.
You already feel it.
Like you almost need you almost need more people to be talking you out of it to be crazy enough to do it.
Right.
And like,
there's so much wisdom in that. I'm going to dive into that after, but finish your thought.
Yeah, I just and I feel bad because sometimes people will come to me and they'll be like, I want to do this thing. I want to be I want to pursue this industry. I want to start up my own thing, do this and that. And I'll kind of be like, okay, well, here's some points of reference. Here's a little bit of like maybe a story of what happened, what can happen. But I really want to I want to be a resource for them. But I'm so much more inclined to want to help someone who's actively doing it, who's actively put skin in the game.
Right.
And if they haven't done that yet, it's just like continue exploring.
Exactly.
Because if you haven't fully committed to something yet, if I need to talk you into
it's not the thing.
You haven't aligned yourself yet with what you're doing. And so you should focus on gaining skills. You should focus on broadening your perspective.
For sure. So because there's oftentimes people ask me for advice and general questions like, oh, should I do this? Should I do this? I'm like, if you're asking, then the answer is already no. Because if you already felt it in your gut, you wouldn't even ask the question. There would be like, I'm supposed to do this right now. Almost that kind of a overtone, but maybe it's not as clear. But usually if people are like, oh, should I do this or this? I'm like, you're not serious about it, because if you were serious, you wouldn't even have that question. You would have already done it. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like people are like, oh, should I buy a house? I'm like, if you were serious about buying a house, you would have already bought the house.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be asking me if I should buy the house. Now you're looking for direction, and there's a different part for that, right? Because there's a pleasure in talking about it. There's a pleasure in even like we're talking a little bit about the grind. Like, how when you're in a startup, you get into the grind, you work all the hours, all those details. It's like there's a group of entrepreneurs that do that because they have to. Like they have to play multiple roles, and they'll do that. But so many people are addicted to the pleasure of grinding. Like there is an inherent pleasure of like working your ass off, waking up 6 a.m. and like working yourself to the bone, going to bed at like 2 a.m. There's a weird pleasure seeking out of there.
Yeah.
So what I've learned over time is that you can do the work and not burn yourself out. And you can make it sustainable. So how do you make it sustainable? You got to figure out what's enough effort. How could you work more efficiently? One thing sales taught me over time is that you're not, like in sales especially, you're paid for your output, not for your input. So you could have low input and have high output. And that's what I learned from sales. So it's like, how do I apply that to my life? Where can I have low input, but then have crazy good output? So how do I do that instead of just trading time, right? It's like, because some people put in 10 hours, but get half the work done. One guy puts in 1 hour, gets 10 times the work done. It's like, I want to be that guy, not the other guy that's 10 hours and grinding himself.
It's such a hard subject because like, I don't know. Cause like, so I think that I was living, when I was in California, I spent a lot of time living in Solana Beach. Funny enough, the blockchain Solana's named. They're from Solana Beach.
That's in LA?
Cali. It's like just outside of San Diego.
Cool.
And so when I first went down to Cali, I like got introduced to these like this castle, and there's like all these blockchain developers, and they've basically hired and invited all these like a few shamans to live in the house with them. And so it's like blockchain entrepreneurs, developers, and shamans, and it's this like huge place, and it's just open doors. Come in anytime, like hang out,
run in and out, whatever. Yeah.
meditate with us. We have like ceremonies, whatever, like just such a blessed place. I loved the experience there, and it's just cool because it was all of because I really have always wanted to learn, how do I become an entrepreneur, but how do I also not fall out of touch with, my spiritual alignment. And so it was very grounding for me being in that house. I also, God, I worked myself into dark places, into very dark places of myself, and just rolling out of bed at like 6, 7 in the morning, having a strong cup of coffee, sitting down at the computer, and then like just going ham on phone calls on like just everything until midnight. And I just consistently, and people in the house were actually concerned for my well-being, and they told me, they're like, you are working too hard, and if you don't slow down, like, we don't know if you should be here. And it was a weird confrontation, because I was like, the ego in me was like, came up, and I'm like, well, you guys, what are you talking about me?
What
like,
are you
working too
doing?
hard?
Yeah.
Like,
What are you doing?
Like,
You're not working as hard as me.
Don't
man.
hold me back. Yeah. You're holding me. So it was funny, and
Shit, man. Advice like that is so hard to take for a lot of different reasons, but like, I don't know if I can't say I agree with the advice you were given, because no one sees what you see, and it's hard to advise someone on what you see, if that makes sense.
I mean, these were like, they weren't wrong, because
like, okay, I would compare that to like
too.
Elon. Elon was doing 100-hour weeks, and like, and he built Tesla. Like, if you hear his story, it's kind of very similar. And now he's like a genius, right? But at that time, I'm sure people are like, you're crazy. What are you doing? So that's why I always think it's like, you can't, on the outside, everyone has an opinion on it. But if you were enjoying it, which you probably were, then I think you were doing the thing you wanted to do anyways. That's
there's this weird thing though too, like, so when I was doing it, like there's this thing called hape, which is it's like a tobacco, and so have you heard of snuff? It's just basically mulched up tobacco into a powder. Okay. And so what the shamans will do is, like, if you're going to a meditation or whatever, they'll use this a lot. If they have a ceremony, they'll do this to kind of cleanse your energy out. And so it was a really really special experience for me, because I had a lot going on, because COVID had happened. I was afraid that if I left the States, I could not get back into the States. Totally separated from all my friends. Like, my friends were either in Texas or they're in Canada.
Right.
I didn't know a single person in Cali. I was completely isolated. Everyone around me was like brand new. I didn't know, like, I couldn't get that warm and fuzzy feeling that, hey, if I didn't have this
got your back,
aura of, like, business, that anyone would care about me. Like, like I didn't know for sure that like I could trust anyone for that. And so, like, I didn't ever really feel like I could let my guard down. And so it was also like, I felt like I was becoming a shell of just what I was doing. So it was interesting, because it was like, I've always believed that life happens for you and not to you. And things will shake you up, and just don't close yourself off to it. And like in this scenario, it was like, it kind of was an ultimatum, right? Like, what was I going to do? Like, I was saving a lot of money because I wasn't having to rent a house or get an Airbnb. They literally gave me a bedroom in the house, and in the castle there. And so I just tried to calm my ego, and I was like, okay, let me, it's not going away. I'm going to communicate with my team. Hey, I'm going to chill a little bit. And we did this like meditation thing. They like blew tobacco up my nose, and I meditated on it. It was just the most interesting thing, because I'd done it before, and I was like, okay, it grounded me into a meditation, and I just felt very, after like an hour, I was like back to normal, but I would have like a very nice grounded energy. This time it was like, dude, I threw up a bunch, and they had me do this ceremony where like you'd purge into like a bucket. I went into the backyard. He's like, dig a hole, dump it into the hole. Bless it, cover the mud, put tobacco leaves on top of it, or put it on top and then put tobacco leaves on top and then cover the hole with the dirt, and then make a prayer for it, for yourself, for that. give love, appreciation. You know, it was like for almost 2 days, I was just energetically it wasn't like a depleted thing. It was just sort of like, I just went into, my body was like, okay, now you're going to sort of
Relax or
yeah,
what?
just relax, and it just made me call. Like I called family, I called my, you know, friends, I called my girlfriend, and I was like, I just have these deep conversations with them and just really seek connection at that time. And I mean, again, like there's been circumstances in my life recently that, you know, it's stirred things up, and it's taken away my ability to have full control over it. And it's like, and it's been through, you know, specific people and circumstances that have helped me be like, okay, hey, stop fighting now. And it's that, like, I love the serenity prayer, know what you can control, what you can't control, and have the wisdom to know the difference. And I think, like, sometimes it's important to take those pauses, but, you know, there's time to go all in it. But when God or the universe, whatever you believe in, is like, puts the circumstances out of your control, like, connect with your ego and like, have that relationship and be like, okay, it is what it is, and I'm going to see what I'm being told through this. And
Right.
life is long. If you have a lot of urgency in business and what you're doing, that's fantastic. Your urgency is not going to get lost. And I think that was also
Exactly.
very like, gosh, it's such a dance. It's like, it's never one or the other. And I got so much value that then I could re-inject back into the business from a
Right.
fresh perspective.
Right.
Of creativity, but also lack of pressure. Someone broke in my car and stole my laptop. For a week, I couldn't do work.
I think I remember that too.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I remember you
I
talking
parked
about
it
that.
for like an hour in Hollywood.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
And that 1 week of like no screen time with my computer, I stopped doing everything myself, and I
Right.
started delegating.
Right.
And again, I became like, that was like such an incredible investment
Like a
of getting
moment,
robbed.
Yeah.
You know.
You were forced to.
Yeah.
You didn't want to delegate. You were forced to. You didn't have
Yeah.
a choice. Things needed to get done, and you couldn't do it because you didn't have a laptop. So, no, that's cool, man. That's cool. I think, I can relate to that in so many different ways. Parts of it, yeah. No, it's cool.